Hey guys, so I just wrapped up the review of the new Tiger 850 Sport, and while I just thought it was going to be like this kind of dumbed down, doesn't really make sense to buy or ride kind of bike, this bike absolutely, positively gave me this nostalgic feel towards my old Tiger 800 Roadie, and it surprised the hell out of me and was just smiles all day long. I'm here in Austin, Texas, so I took it to a little off-road playground area that my buddy Travis recommended, and it was just phenomenal. Warning, difficult trail ahead. You know, where do we start? Right where this bike belongs. It belongs on the road. It's got a 1719 wheel set that's cast aluminum, just like the old Tiger Roadies had, or the XRs before it. Now Triumph makes the GT and the GT Pro, which also has cast wheels. So this bike didn't really make a ton of sense. And then to call it an 850, while it's actually a 900, which is really an 888cc bike, 888. They all keep the same kind of motor. This bike is actually detuned for 10 less horsepower up top. And I'm like, oh man, like 10 less horsepower, is that really gonna be good or bad? The bike's easier to ride down low, and it is easier to ride up high, especially like if you're doing a wheelie. It's actually easier to do a wheelie because it's more predictable. It feels like you don't get into this weird power band when you're super high up in the RPMs, which is really nice. It's tractable. And this bike has a lot of good things about it, but it is a bare bones bike. So you don't get the rider modes like on the GT Pro or the Rally Pro. You get two rider modes, but you can't customize them. You can't go in and make them your own, and then it forgets any changes you made. When you start the bike up, you have to go to the home screen and then into the bike settings and turn the traction control off. It's easier than the older Tigers, like the 800s, the XR or the XCA. I wish it would remember a setting, that would be nice, but that's not what this bike is about even. But being able to turn off the traction control is important. The ABS is now completely non-adjustable. So what does that really mean? You can't turn it off. It doesn't have an off-road mode, so you can't lock up the rear wheel while you're riding it off-road. Some people are going to think that's a big deal. My old Tiger Roadie, which I rode all over the place, did a bunch of off-road with, racing, and everything else, it actually did just fine. I didn't need to be able to shut off the rear ABS. This bike, actually, the ABS seems to be working a little bit better than the old one, so you don't get those little intermittent locks that I kind of like. And that kind of does want, you do want to have the ability to shut off the ABS. Maybe you can trick it, maybe you can pull a fuse or something, but, you know, for small off-road stuff with these big ADV bikes, you don't need to be able to lock up the rear wheel to ride them off-road. So where does this bike really slot itself in at? Well, this bike is a $12,000 bike. It's $5 under 12 grand. So it is, I'm bad at math, not really, but it's $5,200 less than the Rally Pro. It's also like $2,000 and change less than the GTs where they start at. So all the way through the spectrum, yeah, it kind of makes a little bit of sense now. If you want a bare bones bike, no cruise control, no heated grips, no heated seats, no rider modes, this is just a normal bike. Now, that was kind of makes sense to me. And when you look at the whole Tiger lineup from $12,000 to $17,200, that's all great. What I do like about this bike is it's actually only $1,000 more than the 2011 Tiger 800 Roadie. Which is really what this bike is. Non-adjustable suspension front and rear. All you can do is dial up the preload on the rear suspension, which is more like a balance adjuster. I did quite a bit of riding 2-up today. The bike is fantastic 2-up, super easy to ride, smooth. It does not have the quick shifter that the other Pro bikes do. I don't know if you can put one on this. I don't have that technical data. If I do at some point, I'll put that below. And if you want to see like a really in-depth review of the Tiger 900s, I did a review of the Rally Pro, which I'll link below. Super in-depth. It gets all into the T-plane crank with the staggered firing order, which this bike has. It's just been detuned. So what do you get? You get this detuned bike with smaller wheels, well, smaller wheel up front, cast, more narrow handlebars, no handguards. You end up with this really fantastic package that reminds me of my old bike. That's why I'm excited about it. That's why I want to say, like, you can do anything you want on this bike, because you can. It's an adventure bike, right? And as long as you know how to ride it and ride it well, you can do more than most people can do on a bike that's twice as capable as this thing. Where this bike's going to shine is on the road, obviously. Cast wheels always feel better. I wish it was sprung a little heavier for Americans. Maybe that's something that manufacturers can get into, is springing a bike for Americans who are all a little heavier. I mean, look, I'm no supermodel here. I'm like 215 pounds, maybe on a light day. So when it comes to that, yeah, like every American's heavier than a European, which is where they do their testing. If we could just get all uprated springs from the factory, I think it would make a lot of bikes a little bit more, you know, perfect out of the box, which this bike for 12 grand out of the box is why I get excited about it. The competition, you're looking at the BMW F750 GS, which is $1,000 less than this bike, but it is not this bike. You know, Triumph's done a really fantastic job of keeping up the quality, the refinement, the little tiny details that really make these bikes special. This bike still has all that. It still has the split rads. It has the dual cooling fans. It has, you know, just the nice finishes on all the cast equipment. The foot pegs are still removable. Hell yeah, because we know how I felt about the old Tiger 800s with the non-removable foot pegs for 9 or 10 years, however long they were in production for. I am also excited that this bike will most likely be in production for a while. So the aftermarket community is going to catch up with it. You know, if you're going to ride this thing off-road, you're going to want to get a skid plate. So if you get the 850 Sport, you are going to have a ground clearance issue from time to time. it's best to just launch little things like this if you're going to get into any adventure stuff off-road. And it also comes with those Brembo monoblock Stylema brake calipers, which are a huge upgrade from the old 800s. They're basically some of the best brakes you can get for any bike right now, and Triumph has them on the top of the range to the bottom, so they didn't sacrifice anything there. I would like to see some adjustability in the rear shock and also in the front suspension. I would like to see at least the ability to adjust that, but this is a budget conscious bike. You know, if you don't want to be budget conscious, then go get a GT Pro with the electronic rear suspension. That bike's phenomenal. What I will say about this bike though is that off-road, you're able to take this thing off-road and really get into it. And if you're a smaller person, smaller stature, this is actually going to be easier to ride than some of the bigger bikes like the Rally Pro or BMW F850 GSA or even the GS, which are all compact bikes. This bike does benefit from the Tiger now being smaller. It's like I said before in the Rally Pro video that I do, it's like 10% smaller than the outgoing 800, even though it's a larger motor. So it's first gear ideally, so I'm working the clutch quite a bit. It's easy enough. The frame still feels nice and compact. There's no real changes there. If you want to get into all the real details of the bike, they're mostly the same crossover things for the Rally Pro to this bike. You know, you just don't get the foldable foot controls that come on the Rally Pro. The GT does not get those either. The adjustable windscreen is still there, so that's nice. They didn't like take everything away from the bike. I would still like to see a little bit more software in there, especially because software is kind of inexpensive to program into an ECU, but I understand why Triumph does that. They could still give this bike an off-road mode, especially because it has that 1917 wheel setup, which is the adventure bike wheel setup. Is that ideal for somebody like me who wants to do hardcore stuff? No. But is it ideal for the person who's going to get this bike? Yeah, I really think so. And I find this bike to just be really nostalgic for me. It's still got that Triumph feel. It still has the triple whirl. Some people wanted to complain in magazine reviews and some YouTube reviews about engine vibrations at high speeds. If you're doing about 90 miles an hour, there's a little buzz through the handlebars. Everything else is negligible. And I will fight that opinion tooth and nail, but that's because I'm just a person who doesn't really get bothered by things like that. Like, I don't get bothered by a little bit of engine heat. You're riding a motorcycle. It's a bicycle with a giant engine. That being said, I don't have any heat issues with this bike. I don't have any heat issues with the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, which I bought one recently. So that should kind of speak to the level of bike that Triumph delivers. That's sick that my bike got dropped like that. That was cool. Why did I buy the Rally Pro? Because it does everything that I want it to do. Whereas this bike is still a step back. But if you want to ride an adventure bike and you want to go down a gravel road, you want to see where something goes, you want to go through a construction site, maybe it's a road, maybe it isn't. I want to see what's going on down here. I mean, that's right where I am now. I'm standing in a weird power line construction site. I wanted to see what was down here, and I thought this was a great place to shoot my review for this bike. The 5-inch display that comes on this is smaller than the one that comes on the GT or the Rally. It's a 5-inch display instead of the 7. It's very similar to what used to come on the 800 Tigers. As far as the LCD, its color and all that stuff. A little hard to read the tachometer still. I've always said that about the bike, but it very much mirrors that of the Tiger 900. So the layout is very similar. It's just still not good, and it's 2 inches smaller. I think it could be better, but that, again, that's a software update. Triumph could always make that. I doubt they would listen to my opinion, but it is not good. It is not a good tachometer setup for this bike. But what I really like about the bike, the motor's phenomenal. And the transmission is still the slickest. Like the old 800s, slick, beautiful transmission. This one, still the same. If you haven't ridden a bike with the quick shifter, I suggest it, and then decide if you want one or not. I know all the old school guys are gonna be like, nah, I don't need that. Well, try one out, especially for the clutchless downshifts where it blips it, really nice. This is a ride-by-wire bike. To meet Euro 5 and just to be modern, it has a ride-by-wire. No issues there, no weird rubber band feeling of like stretching that rubber band and then it catches up with the rest of the bike, none of that. The power delivery, like I said, it's down 10 horsepower, super smooth. Really puts down power predictably. I don't think traction control is even necessary on this bike. And I never really thought it was necessary on the 800s. I do kind of like it on the 900, especially on the street. But again, these are just little things that I'm kind of talking about myself more than I am talking about the bike. This still comes with the LED headlights that the Rally Pro and the GT come with. So like, there's a tremendous amount of comparison to its bigger brothers. This is just a less expensive version of that. What would I choose? In this price range, you are looking at like the T7, which if you want to go off-road and you want a very analog bike, the T7 is a really nice choice. The frame, the fit and finish, the wheel set, the suspension, none of those components on the Yamaha T7 are as nice as this bike's. Then you've got that BMW F750 GS. How do they compare? Well, I rode one in Crested Butte, Colorado, had a real good time on one. Put some serious miles on it, cast wheels. The motors are just two different wheelhouses. The 750 BMW GS motor is still an 850 GS derivative, and it is not in the same class as this motor right here. So I would suggest that if you really want to do a little bit of gravel, but you do a lot of road riding, or you want something that's very sporty, this is a very high spec adventure bike. I don't know if there's any real other competitors in the market. There is the KTM 790 Adventure S. KTM has yet to let me ride one of those, so I can't even tell you how that is. I heard they're good, but reliability-wise, my Tiger 800 had 36,000 miles on it when I retired it, and that bike never left me in the woods once. And 30,000 of those miles was all either off-road or racing miles. Going to dual sports, going to adventure rides, and then riding that bike in the woods with dirt bikes, with the cast wheels, and that bike never once left me stranded. Even the last time I rode it.
Oh, damn it. This is not good. All right, let's go.
You know, the last time I rode that bike, I actually got like pretty teary-eyed because I knew it was going to be the last time I rode it. And that's why I have this big emotional connection to this bike. And if you get the chance to, and you have a Tiger 800 and you want to just maybe upgrade your roadie, I like really support that choice. For anybody else who's thinking about getting into adventure riding, this bike's smaller, it's easier to handle, the handlebars aren't as wide, it doesn't have all these weird menus to go into, just turn the traction control off and ride it. So I think it's a great starter bike for anybody who wants to decide whether they want to have a sport tour, an adventure bike, see where a gravel road goes. This is easier to swing your leg over every day than some of the really tall adventure bikes. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, or you want to check out my Tiger 900 review where I go into the whole motor and the counterbalancers and the staggered firing order and all that really tech stuff, I'm going to link that below and at the end of the video, so you can check that out there. If you have any questions, just ask them in the comments. I get back to almost everybody. I also want to say thank you to Triumph for lending me a bike while I was in Austin. That by no way had me say anything I wouldn't have said anyway, though, so like, don't worry about me being buttered up. They just lent me a bike. I already own one, so I don't care. You know what I mean? It's just a bike. So while I appreciate it, this is an honest review. And I don't know, subscribe to my channel if you like those kind of things. Anyway, I'll see you guys out there. Thanks for watching along. I hope I answered all your questions, went through and tried to hit every kind of detail. See you guys out there. I forgot to do that thing that I do. Whew. I'm tired. Nailed it! Hang on, guys. Hang on. We're not tired yet. There's a couple things I might have skipped over that you might want to know about. You know, the suspension components on this bike. This bike has 180 mil of travel up front and 170 at the rear. They're all high quality components, and the suspension is definitely tuned more towards street riding than off-road riding. That being said, this bike will still handle that little bit of gravel, those little bit of rocks that you're most likely going to take this bike on if you pick up something like this where you're just like, hey, I want to see where that gravel road goes. The other thing that I want to talk about is the seat height. I did say that the bike is a little bit smaller and easier to handle. That's, you know, the more narrow handlebars. It does have just under a 32-inch seat height, and it's pretty narrow at the seat, so you're able to get your feet down. That's in the lowest position, and then Triumph does sell a low seat for these bikes, and you'll have some other options that get this bike even a little bit lower, and they will sell a low model in the GT version. I don't know if this bike's going to have a low version, but it's something to look into. Otherwise, a lowering kit might be the way to go for you, but I think that this bike is pretty easily manageable. It doesn't feel very big like some of those big BMW GSs where everyone's like, oh, it's got a low center of gravity. It still has two giant cylinder heads sticking out of the sides. It doesn't feel good for a new rider, where this bike feels smaller. It's going to feel less intimidating, and that might be where you want to be. The other thing is passenger comfort. Most of the GoPro footage from the helmet cam that you're going to see in this video was actually shot 2-up. Now, my camera person here noted that the rear passenger seat was really comfortable, plenty of space to move around on, and you know, we had plenty of space, and I'm not exactly a small person, and neither is she. And the rider triangle feels pretty good. It's a bit of a reach to the bar, some people might find. I'm not the type of person to go out and buy bar riser backs, but you could if you wanted to. But also, just standing position felt really neutral, and I wouldn't run out and buy bars right away or anything like that. I think keeping this bike stock and learning how to ride it is more important than actually figuring out, like, do I need to pull the bars back 3 centimeters? Like, I don't know. Keep it moving, guys, with that one. The other thing is the engine. The power delivery on this bike is very smooth. I noticed it this morning, you know, putting around the city. The on-off throttle response is actually very nice and very timid. It doesn't feel jittery or anything like that. So again, it's just going to feel better for, you know, newer riders, more timid riders, somebody who's trying to get the hang of it. And then yet, when I was blasting on this bike and doing wheelies and riding off-road, it also felt really good there. Again, guys, if I missed anything or you want to know any kind of specific little details, let me know. Drop me a comment and I'll get back to you. Whew, I'm tired. Whew, we're done. Yeah.
I mean, what do you want me to say about it? We took Steve out today. He tried. Trying is the biggest challenge, really. I gave him a joke bike. Totally fair. But he did all right. Did a 6-mile hard enduro loop in Texas. Said there was too many rocks because he's used to New Jersey.
I had a great time with you, Steve. Cool meeting you. He does all right on a dirt bike. I don't know. I feel like I'm better than him. I just don't want to like show it all the time. Cause like I don't want to ruin his ego. Like he's got a really big ego, and I don't want to deflate it. So.
Well, then all should be easy to ride.
Nice and revvy. Ooh, what do we do here, huh?
Here's the easy line. How do you ride two strokes, man? These are horrible. Yeah, you know what? Let's try that. Dude, it's like third gear. The thing's like, nah. I gave myself arm pump trying to hold it closed. Oh, put that one in the ribs. Trade back. Let's trade back.
You sure?
Yeah.
In the way, buddy.
Burp, burp. Okay. Come on. Ooh. Almost. Ugh.
I mean, I waited for you a bunch.
You gave me a joke bike, dude, that goes backwards on uphills. It's
switched.
faster on downhills, dude. This.
No, we switched. We
I
switched.
know.
No, you were on that, and then you wanted to go back. Don't even give me this.
Well, yeah, because the 300's from what, 1984, dude? The thing's a death trap. Yeah, dude. Why do you gotta make me answer questions I don't want to talk about?
Because it's Sam.
No, Sam's horrible at bikes. He's worse than me. Sam's worse than these shin guards over jeans. That's actually, Sam is the equivalent of shin guards over jeans.
I hope you had fun.
No,